Woo, all right. Let's get to it here. A couple more programs and then I'm going to get myself a new camera and a new setup. Canada's greatest export, Terry Etam. You can see the camera differences here, night and day. But Terry, how you doing today?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Very good. Terry Etam's with the BOE Report, a columnist, a writer for that energy publication. Longest in the world or largest circulation. What's the There was some sort of like tagline that was
Some
legit
great thing.
marketing. Yeah.
Yeah,
What's that?
it's something like that. I don't pay attention to the stats. I just do my thing and go get out of their way. But yeah, I
Spoken
think it's
like a
pretty
true
widely read.
reporter.
Yeah.
Jim. Do you know Jim Willis? He's out of the Marcellus. He does the
No.
Marcellus Drilling News.
Oh, I read that sometimes. Yep.
Yeah, he's a legit reporter. He's a legit journalist. He's very oil and gas centric. So I mean, he's not going to go and write anything negative against the industry. He's just okay. Here's the permits. Here's this. Here's that.
I
I'm a
love that stuff.
yeah. It's you can be a paid cheerleader without being a propagandist. And that's what I call Jim. He's an oil and gas reporter. You're
If
an
you're
oil and gas
providing
reporter.
information that's
Yeah,
factual and that's where people can
and
go. Yeah.
and what Jim told me once, it connected with me, and I think you're kind of like this. We become more of shouters than engagers because we're so used to reporting and moving on to the next. We don't really want to engage with the comments because we don't want to get caught up.
Yeah.
It's literally we put it to bed. Now we're on to the next, and for political people that's hard because they're paid to keep the gridlock going. They're paid to
Right.
keep the friction there and everything along those lines. But weird way to introduce today's show, today's podcast. How you doing, by the way? How's Canada?
Canada is okay. It's hanging in there. I think it's well, we're battening down the hatches for winter, which is never a happy time. I guess some people like it, but it's yeah, it's the sun goes down or doesn't come up till spring essentially. That sets here at like 4:30, and so yeah, that's life for now.
And how's your
Artificial.
safety? I saw a news story and then I clicked on the I don't know, like the first 3 minutes of the press conference and I thought it was a deep fake. So I had to get you on the horn here because it appeared that there was somebody in authority having a press conference telling Canadian citizens that if somebody breaks into their house, they're supposed to just let the person do what they're going to do, call 911 and then just wait for the police to show up. Is that correct? Is that a deep fake or is that real?
Well, no, it's real, and then it's unfortunate. It's even more pathetic than it sounds. I think that was like a police commissioner not in Toronto or something, and his recommendation was they're breaking in. They're looking for your most valuable things, which is usually your car. So if you just leave your car vehicles right by the front door, your auto keys, I mean, then it'll make their job much easier. And they won't bother you. Like it's just the most ludicrous roll over and play dead and let them take everything kind of attitude. It's just like a pacifist mentality, which I suppose they
I,
don't want
I, I don't think it's a
violence, but
pacifist mentality. That goes. I mean, that's very unsafe. But I'm kind of American here, and
mhm.
I understand Canada's a little bit different. And when I saw that, I seriously I tried to figure out the rationale. I'm trying to figure out the reason here. And listen, it's very easy to point to entitlement because somebody can get so far removed that they believe everybody lives in gated communities and they've got a staff. Like like
Right.
like there's people that seriously get that detached. And I try not to go right there, but this one it's hard not to because like I'm thinking more about it. And Terry, I'll give you an example in America here. I don't know if your police do the same thing or your constables or your Mounties or whatever the police force is called up in Canada these days. But if there's a high speed chase in town, you're not supposed to chase them. You're just supposed to get the license plate and then go and find them later on, because you actually might cause more problems with the high speed chase. Somebody might die, you might get an accident,
Right.
you could go into a house or a building. And so I tried to go down that path. Like, okay, where's this like, seriously, if a criminal breaks into your house, you're you're just supposed to
Well,
let them be, huh?
we're kind of messed up, and it kind of depends on who's in power. Like there's a couple, give you a couple of examples. Another one that would be even more grating is there's a guy in Ontario, the same province. Someone broke into his house in the middle of the night. The guy woke up, caught him, and beat him up. And he must have given him a pretty good beating. The homeowner got charged with assault on the guy, like for excessive force or something. Like
We've had that in America about 10, 20 years ago, where somebody was
yeah,
breaking into a house and they fell through a window, and then they sued the homeowner and the criminal won. Like, and so
it's bad news. It's there.
there is a
So
lot of those examples out there, but the
yeah, but
bigger
it's how
culture,
they get handled. Like so in Alberta, like our premier in Alberta, we're a little more in sync with the U.S. here. We're a little more freedom oriented in law and order. People or societally, I suppose. And our premier was asked, like, what do you think about this? And she said, well, if you don't want to get beaten up, don't break into people's homes, which seems pretty logical to me. Yeah, but there's also one other example I'll give you. So I take public transit every day into downtown Calgary. We have a train system, which is it's pretty nice, although it's getting disgusting because the people like to sleep on it and do nasty things on it, and it smells bad sometimes. But we had a pretty liberal, left-leaning mayor in Calgary here for 4 years, and she just let things run free. There was no crackdown on anything, and in that time span, I don't recall once, and it was at least more than years, 2 or 3 years ago, where I was actually asked to prove that I have a ticket. That's how they enforce it. It's kind of the honor system, and every now and then the police or whatever, the transit cops come on and they check everybody's ticket, make sure you have one. It's an honor system. For years, they didn't even check anything because all these people were riding around for free. And well, you have to, not everybody can afford it, which is kind of a nice thing, I suppose. We got a new mayor in 2 weeks ago who's a little more toe of the line, and the transit cops are back instantly checking tickets again. So it's kind of it's a bit of a systemic thing. What do you let slide in society, and what don't you let slide? You can make a case for a lot of like the criminal element if they're just like they have drug problems or mental health issues or whatever. That it's a valid case that a lot of them just need help. And how do you do that is a very tough thing to resolve. But at some point, you have to say enough is enough, or crime is not acceptable. And I think citizens they're kind of sway back and forth in the middle. Or they might be a little bit more empathetic until it crosses a certain line, and then they say, okay, enough of this nonsense. So, and I think the U.S. just has a little bit more of a different spectrum there, where the tolerance is a little lower for that, which is fine. That's not a bad way to be. But you can see where crime runs rampant or whatever. Like you have to do something. You can't just reach out to hold their hand. There's some people that are just criminals, and what are you going to do? So, anyways,
I could see where this would invite criminals.
mm,
Because if you're down on your luck and you're trying to figure out a way to survive, and all of a sudden you turn, you see on TV, there's a police chief saying, "Hey, just let the criminals crime, just
yeah,
let them be." And you're thinking
grab
to
the keys.
yourself, like honestly, Terry, what I would do if I was down on my luck and living in Canada and couldn't figure out a way to make ends meet, and maybe I couldn't get a job, and maybe for whatever, I don't know, whatever, people have their sob stories and ways of
Yeah,
life. I'd ring the doorbell and just say, open up and say, "Hey,
grab your
criminal
keys.
here, everybody hide, I'm possibly armed." I mean, seriously. And then just go raid the fridge and leave, just take the food, just leave the car, and maybe take a quart of milk and a loaf of bread and go. I mean,
Well, we saw that in San Francisco, right? They made it. Maybe that's flipping back to the other country, but they raised that bar where if you steal, what was it? If you stole less than $500 worth, or you
yeah.
weren't your criminal offense. So what happened? What do you think happens?
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't a Snickers left at in a convenience store, man. People are going in and taking the mounds and the mounds were taken, for crying out loud. You know
Even
that there's crime if the mounds and almond joys are all
when the
gone.
bad candy is gone, you know you have a problem. So,
Oh
but
boy, I
anyways,
tell you, that's
it,
and I
it,
don't know if it's the American in me or just my libertarian roots, because I came from the Gen X generation where we had to get a job when we were 10 years old to pay for our own school clothes, and we were told to rub a dirt on it if we broke our arm, and all kinds of different things. So we were kind of the Twinkie experimental classic Coke, new Coke generation. So we've had our share of guinea pigs. We've had our share of freedoms. We've had our share of, I call it, we were the best generation, the Gen Xers, because we had to learn how to live. I mean, literally, we had to learn how to live. We had to listen to ourselves because we were known as what, latchkey kids, we were even called at that
yeah, something.
generation, because both parents started working. They weren't sure what to do with us. So we kind of had to raise ourselves a little bit. And then in came the soccer and helicopter moms. And then it was like an overcorrection. And sorry, I just I kind of ramble on sometimes, but I do want to get back to the Canadian crime thing real quick.
Sure, it's not my area of expertise, but yeah.
Well, because I'm going to bring it to the oil field here.
Oh, okay. Uh,
Um, does this police constable, Mountie chief, does he understand the value of things on like industrial sites and how scrap metal people work? And I mean, I've seen Trailer Park Boys, man, and there's been a whole season based on getting scrap metal, and all of a
that's
sudden,
a,
if Bubbles and and Ricky and the boys show up at an oil field site and start taking pipe. They even did that in episode. They got plastic pipe instead of the metal pipe when they were making a hash refinery or whatever kind of uh, honey oil refinery, whatever the heck they were doing. Terrific show, by the way, for anybody.
one of my friends that comes from out there, that's filmed in the Maritime provinces. He comes from out there and he said that's actually a documentary. That's not a drama.
That's what I've heard. That they just kind of built this thing and then they just record like for they just kind of record for basically like a summer. They got loose storylines and then they just kind of put it together and
Let it
stuff.
rip.
But
Yeah.
Trailer
Uh,
Park Boys. But my point is that though they exist, there are people that sit
well,
around and get high and drink and they decide that let's go get some
steal
money.
stuff.
Let's go get some scrap metal because, hey, Cadillac converters got palladium in them. Oil field, they got copper, they got metal, all kinds of different stuff. What would happen? I mean, in America, you can't even get within 20 feet of the road to get to an oil refinery, let alone an oil site before the sheriff or private security shows up. What do you think it would be like in Canada if somebody followed the police chief's rules and just started helping themselves to an oil site?
Well, they do. Like
Do they?
I work for an oil and gas company, and we have now part of the problem in Canada is things tend to be more remote. So our our field is like it's like I don't know hundreds of miles of bush roads, and there's nobody living on it. And we get thieves fairly regularly, and they like batteries and they like copper. And we have solar panels on every well site to power pumps, and they steal the batteries. They're the big RV type batteries. So
Mm-hmm.
it's quite annoying, but there's nobody to catch. The police can't catch them in the act. It's too hard to do. They could hear it's out in the bush. You could hear somebody coming for 15 minutes, and they tend to be armed, so you can't go near them. And the police just can't. There's not enough police to chase all these things down. What drives us crazy? Two things. One is that the laws are too lax to really do anything about it. And I went to a theft seminar by one of the oil and gas associations here, and they had a police crime specialist that gave the talk. And there's frustration on their side. They know who a lot of the criminals are. It's just really hard to do anything about it, or they have to build such a strong case to get them to successfully convict them, and then they wind up right back out on the street anyways. That's just our, and that's part of our federal crime laws. So that gets back to the governance thing. Like, what are we prioritizing and what are we penalizing? And a lot of it is not really penalized that much, this petty theft stuff. And there's no, we can't figure out why there isn't more of a crackdown on the metal resellers and the like, the idiots we have a site in particular where they came and they stole every bit of copper they could, like several inches of copper. They would cut the pieces off. They hooked up a truck to rip up underground cables, which is, I mean, they caused millions of dollars in destruction to a site that was, it was a non-operational site. Um, and they're getting pennies on the dollar for any of this stuff. Even those brand new batteries, they're selling them for a fraction of what they are brand new, and somebody's buying them in large quantity. And why there can't be a better system to go after those scrap metal dealers, I don't know. It has to funnel into certain number of limited choke points. And if you can't catch them in the field, then you should be able to catch them where they're selling the stuff, unless they're just smuggling it to the U.S. But even then, unless they're moving it in like 5 pound packages, there's got to be something that can be done to make that system more traceable.
That
So
seems like a pretty fixable problem. Like not a
it
hundred
seems like it,
percent, but
yeah.
you'd think that between cameras, security cameras, and tracers, trackers, I mean the
Oh,
batteries.
we've had security cameras, and they steal the security cameras. They walk right up to them, and they have their
Sure.
faces covered. And what are you going to do? They have stolen vehicles, like it's in a if it's in a remote place, it's going to take the police 3 hours to get there, or 2 hours if they get there at all. And like I said, they're long gone with what they want. Uh,
Trackers, they can't put trackers on the
you probably could
batteries.
put trackers. Yeah,
Okay.
that's something that I'm not directly in that space. The thieves tend to get very smart. They
Yeah.
recognize tracking things and they rip
Well,
them.
that's what I'm saying. They'd probably figure out a way to, you'd catch a couple and then they'd
Yeah,
figure it out. And then all of a sudden they'd bring with the little, the Saul Goodman check if I got a bug in my office, wave the wand
yeah,
type thing. And then take out the Breaking Bad scrambleizer so it scrambles the tracker. And yeah, I
yeah.
get all
Had a
that. But, and
I have a
Russia, they just bring in bears. Maybe you guys should bring in bears to have security. Well, China has geese. I love it. They have geese and like parks and things like that, for more civilized people because a goose is a mean animal, man. And then a bear, I love how Russia's figured out a way to put them in the military. But anyway, so I we kind of go
okay,
off a
yeah,
little bit on
yeah,
tangents, but crime. I bring up the crime thing because the oil and gas industry is one of the first ones hit. Okay, and whether people know it or not, you got trucks getting stolen, you got
huge
pipe getting
problem.
stolen, you got batteries getting stolen.
Equipment.
There is millions of dollars on every well site. So if you've got anybody in law enforcement telling people, yeah, go commit crimes, and if a crime happens on your watch, well, just give us a call, and then we'll come. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't believe I'm living in a day and age where this is what I'm seeing. But like I said, Terry, I tried to figure out the logic behind it. I just can't. It just to
No,
me, it just seems like that's a
it's
level of
a
entitlement that I don't understand.
well, it's a systemic thing. Like they're just not any. The police are frustrated as anyone trying to. I don't know about that specific one giving terrible advice like that, but I've heard lots of frustration, like sometimes in the media, or just if you ever talk to one about how hard it is to actually. You spend months building a case against someone and gets tossed out for a technicality,
Hmm.
or they, like I said, they get a slap on the wrist and they're right back on the street, and it's a big problem. Well, it's an international problem now too, even from the Canadian perspective, because like the fentanyl trade, right? Like we Canada makes a lot of noise that very little fentanyl is, like Trump has cracked down on Canada because of the fentanyl coming across the border, and a lot of Canadians like to arm wave and say, "Oh, wait a minute, you hardly caught any fentanyl going across the border compared to Mexico." It's like, well, we hardly caught any. That doesn't mean a lot wasn't going across more successfully. I mean, the border's thousands of miles long, and it's completely unguarded. There's no wall anywhere. There are border crossing points where there's not even any people out rural areas. So to say to claim that as a success because very little is actually caught. The police here occasionally bust monster fentanyl labs. One of them that they busted, it was about a year ago, and they were claiming it's the biggest one they've ever found. It had 54 kilograms, which is like 130 pounds of fentanyl, 130 pounds ready for market. like grains will kill people, right? So I don't even know how much that would be damage wise. And that's how much they had like in their for sale inventory, never mind the whole process of all the precursor chemicals and everything. And so they
Are
shut down this
they're
plant. And,
manufacturing it up there?
oh yeah, all over the place. They're just like there's so
I
many
suppose
rural areas
because
that
um,
it's,
about
it's
what 20 years ago was the meth invasion, right?
yeah.
Where Canada all of a sudden became the new hotbed to manufacture meth because, well, I mean, you're too
It,
nice. I
well,
mean,
and then, like I was
really.
going to say, this example where they busted the biggest fentanyl lab in Canadian history, they busted it. They arrested one person, and I
Well,
don't even know if they've
that's my
even.
point is that when the laws are set up for the quality of life is so good, because
Yes,
Canada had that, eventually the criminals figure it out. Hey, they'll play ball. They'll show up to church and they'll smile and get paid to
yeah,
do that. But on behind the scenes, what you don't know is they're making meth in their basement and they're making
hmm
fentanyl in their basement. But
hmm
hey, they're showing up to the soccer games too. You bet they are.
yeah, yeah,
That's how I think a lot of this is going on. To be honest, I think we've gotten to a point now where a lot of the leadership criminals are your Walter Whites, are your community members that you see on a regular basis. They're not the ones slinging it. No, the people slinging it, they're the ones that, get take advantage of on a day-to-day basis.
yeah. Absolutely.
But
They're the
the
street
people that
people.
figured out how
Yeah.
to get into Canada and how to where the little town in Minnesota where I'm at right now, that's 500 yards from the river that I bring my dog every day. This town is a meth town, okay? And I didn't know that when I bought it, but I was talking to my neighbor, and the first thing she did when I bought the place is she said, if I ever sell, they will buy it because too many people are buying the small town houses and making meth in them in this
Oh,
county. Yeah,
oh wow.
and so when I kind of did my homework, like literally there's like three families that own 70% of the homes in this town now because they don't want anybody making meth in this town, so they'll just buy them up and sit on them and just
Yeah,
hey, we'd rather just have nobody live there than a meth addict or a meth dealer and all kinds of different
yeah,
things.
yeah.
But it's 5 miles within a town of 15,000 and 45 miles from Fargo, which is, 200,000. And then, of course, 2 hours from Minneapolis. But more importantly, it has that interstate of 94 and 29. And anytime that you get two interstates that make a X or a T, oh man, the feds love that. The drug dealers love that. The logistics love that. It's just like a canal. It keeps things moving. So, is
Hard to
there drug
police.
problems in the oil and gas field too? Is that a problem out there?
Not as I'm not aware of any on the like the production side. There's a use problem, but where they're
That's what I mean. Like the
well,
workers, are they using up there and stuff?
you hear that periodically. Like for a while, it was quite bad, but drug testing is pretty common.
Yeah, they cleaned it
Uh,
up pretty good, and
yeah,
at least in
yeah,
America they did. I figured they did in Canada.
yeah. We can't afford to have that, right? Like I mean, we have drilling operations and fracking operations,
Yeah.
and like if things go sideways, that's a big problem. So yeah, we just can't afford to have that kind of stuff. So I know that their testing is pretty uniform, and people are run out of town pretty quick for violating it. So.
Hey, I
We,
got to ask you, Trans Alta. Are you familiar with them? Trans Alta.
the
They,
power
they,
company, yep.
they just bought four Ontario natural gas plants. Who are they? What's the story behind that? And is natural gas making a comeback up in Canada?
So TransAlta it's a big Alberta-based power company, and they were the utility type, and they have a renewables division, and they're but yeah, just a general power utility. And I'm not sure where all their operations are across the country or even in the U.S. A lot of them going to the U.S. too. These power plants, I looked into that transaction. It's kind of an odd thing. They bought I think it's 310 megawatts, and they're in northern Ontario. And I happened to drive through northern Ontario this summer when I drove across Canada, and it's as remote as can be. There's very few people there. What goes through there is like there's a highway, and then there's a natural gas line that goes along that highway more or less, and it feeds these power plants for these small communities. I think the four community, I think one of the communities is called Iroquois Falls, and one is Kapuskasing. They're like very isolated towns. No other town within like 50 miles either side, kind of.
I've
Couple
actually
like
been to
almost like
Iroquois
outposts.
Falls before. I've
Oh,
actually
really?
been,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So when you said that, I'm like, oh, I know that town. Okay, go
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
That Moose Jaw, baby. You don't forget town names, man.
Moose Jaw is out in the heart of civilization compared to Iroquois Falls. So,
I know it is, but Moose Jaw's pretty good. That's pretty good. You know, we always say spent a week there one night in Moose Jaw. But
um,
so that's like the when you say
small.
power company, would that be like in America we have co-ops where it's based?
No, it'd be like one of the bigger utilities that owns a lot of like, I'm not sure if they own transmission, but they own a lot of power plants. And of course, they set up a renewables arm like everyone did 10 years ago.
Is it
So they got,
private or state or
no, it's public. You can buy
it is
shares.
public? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
But that's got to be a good sign though that they're purchasing the power plants if they're natural gas. I mean,
It
for
is, and like again, it comes down to politics. Like 10, 15 years ago, they bought all of these in the province of Ontario, and the government there about 10 or 15 years ago, they were trying to get rid of natural gas. That was their mandate. Like
yeah,
we're not having any more of that. They have a lot of nuclear in Ontario, which is good clean power, but they were just determined to get rid of natural gas. And so to see somebody stepping up and actually buying something like this in Ontario, yeah, it's a good sign that I mean, energy reality just coming back. That I think a lot of people were sold a bill of goods that this was going to be an easy transition, and I mean, it's simplistic to think so, and there are people out there that will try and convince you. Sometimes their motives are good, sometimes they aren't, but they'll try and convince you that all you have to do is just like have the will, and we'll just convert. We'll be off fossil fuels because we want to be, but it's not. That's not how the world works, and everybody's kind of waking up to that fact now. So
all right, ladies and gentlemen, Terry Etam is our guest. He's with the BOE Report. He also has a blog that he probably hasn't updated in over a
that's
year called
correct.
Public Energy Number One. I just keep saying that because it's a great name.
Thanks. I have to get back on that.
Yeah, and but he's also an author of the End of the Fossil Fuel Insanity. You can pick it up at Barnes and Noble or Amazon on the .com sites and that sort of thing if you'd like to order it in time for the holidays. And
That'd be smart.
I was an editor for 20 years and a publisher for even more. And what I'm about to say is going to sound snarky, but it's not. It's an observation
It's
of
necessary.
experience. And because of your experience, Mr. Terry Etam, I think you can follow along with to know that I'm not trying to be mean or snarky here. But have you ever heard of a publication called the Albertan? The Albertan.
No, I don't think I have.
So it's Alberta with an N on it,
Yeah,
Albertan, right?
Yep.
And boy, this is about as small town local as I could see for a headline. And then I'm looking at the author name, and that's even pretty small town. So it's written by Brett McKay, local journalism reporter. It's almost like a double wording there, journalism reporter. Investigative Journalism Foundation. So
Okay.
they really want to make sure you know that they're a journalism and they're local. I love it. But here's the headline. This is why it sounds small town to me. Alberta's COP30 delegate is a former oil and gas industry lobbyist. So it's almost like, hey, John's leaving. Can somebody water his lawn? You know, it's like Dave's having dinner over at Bev's, and it seemed like a
Small town
headline
news.
like that to me. That hey, we have somebody at the COP30. Oh, and he's in oil and gas. Do you know anybody that's gone to the COP30? The only thing I'm seeing from it is that the oil and gas industry sent a ton of lobbyists there, and I don't know if that's good or bad, or I have no idea. I'm just kind of I don't follow that as much as I probably should.
No, I don't follow it as much as I do, or a lot of people do. It's the term lobbyist is it gets up my nose a little bit. I know what a lobbyist is. A lobbyist goes to Washington or Ottawa here, and they plead their case for different regulations or whatever that, and they're jousting in the political arena. If an oil and gas representative goes to COP 30, it's not a lobbyist, it's somebody trying to trying to explain the realities of energy to a bunch of people that don't want to hear it. So I think that's quite different from a lobbyist. So I mean, you had this global conference for years where, and for several years at least, I don't know how many, but anyone from the oil and gas industry was excluded from participating, which is insane when oil and gas makes up what 80% of the global energy system. So it's like it's not even that we don't want to hear your opinion. You're not even allowed to attend. And then once they're allowed to attend, now they're just decried as lobbyists, which is like a hallmark of stupidity that I don't even like to discuss. But that's part of the disease of that whole mindset of the COP conference thing. I mean, you could analyze it on all sorts of layers of insanity where 50,000 people fly into the jungle and they cleared 100,000 trees to build a new road in the Amazon to host this conference, then brought in cruise ships because there wasn't enough air conditioning in the hotels and there wasn't even enough hotels. And I mean, they just pile on and then they all fly their jets, of course, too. And they have in the most remote locations in the world they can think of. So everybody has to fly in. So the irony, but I think I called it irony land, that they don't, it doesn't, it just goes over their head. Like that people somebody might legitimately from the oil and gas industry or from anywhere else say, you realize you can't hold these things without oil and gas. This just, you cannot. But they were excluded from even saying that. Like you're just booted out of the conference for saying something like that. Now, if they show up to try and say that, they're deemed a lobbyist. It's like, well, the head of Greenpeace is an oil and gas lobbyist because he uses the stuff. If you want to put it that way, the Michael Manns of the world are oil and gas lobbyists because they use it. So I don't know. You could bend definitions if you want, but that whole religious faction has done that for a long time. Just bend definitions to try and advance their cause. A climate emergency, a climate catastrophe. The planet is boiling. Doug Nye, the science guy, posing with a little globe that's on fire, saying the world is on fire. It's like the hyperbole, and they're just trying to shock people into changing behavior without realizing that has a diminishing effect over time. That's how they work. They see somebody from the oil and gas industry, they deem them a lobbyist, which is supposed to be a negative term, and they hope to sideline them by smearing them with a name. So next, as far as I'm concerned, it's just diminishing in relevance because the whole world is starting to see like, oh, okay, I get it now. That's how energy really works, not what you told me. There's an
Do
example
do
I
you
wrote
think
about.
that do you think that was when they brought Greta Thunberg to the forefront as the kind of the face of the climate movement, where um, from a look, I'm again, this is an observation. These are strategies. There are people that do get together in dark rooms and come up with strategies that are a little bit manipulating, and having a minor that's a
Mhm.
female who happens to have a mental disability and is ushered to the front, that's a lot of boxes that you can't go against, or you're deemed this, you're deemed that you don't like women, you're deemed that you don't like children, you're deemed that, oh, she's got dyslexia, or she's got some kind of mental disorder. It's classified as. It's not,
Yeah,
it's not like when we were growing up, Terry, but well, Elon Musk does too. Elon Musk has
yeah,
got whatever it's called.
yeah.
So
Well, that aspect I don't like to talk about somebody's physical characteristics, but the fact
but
was
that's what I'm talking about. To where
manufactured. It,
there's so many triggers that you could bring up to say, whoa, what? How did this person leap in front of the top climatologist on the planet? Like
oh yeah, she
we
became
have
the
people
spoke.
that have gone to university and gotten doctorates, and a 16-year-old girl usurped them at these climate conferences. And to me, I get it that it's not a popular thing because, like I just listed, a ton of triggers. One to where you even got triggered, to where we can't. I mean, that's the point here I'm trying to make, is that there's so many landmines that make people uncomfortable. At the end of the day, we ushered in this feeling over fact that really was kind of the end result of it. And I think that's where we're at, Terry, is that, and I'm not trying to blame her, because there
I don't
were
blame
people.
her. No.
No, there are people behind the scenes. That's why I prefaced it with, there are people that get together in dark rooms and make this stuff happen. And by the way, in my hometown, Fargo Moorhead, they're doing the same thing with the school levy, where they're using kids in all the marketing, asking for millions of dollars so they can put in solar panels and wind turbines. So, I mean, it's no different. It's just, it
Yeah.
trickles down. Um, so is that where we're at, though, is the feelings over facts? Because that's a paradigm shift that the industry, oil and gas industry, should be aware of, if it is true, because we've been talking about this now for 10 years. And it certainly seems like if somebody brings up how they feel and you try to bring up a fact, the police will come escort you out.
I think in a lot of the world that's going away. Like I think that reached its zenith in 2019 or whatever. What Greta Thunberg she came to Canada, and we had our illustrious prime minister at the time, Justin Trudeau, who refused to meet with oil and gas executives or be seen with them in public. He marched down the street with her in one of her protests, and with all of the kids behind her, they got the day off school to protest the burning planet. And that was like the peak of that wave. It's just kind of like I said, this reality is kicking in.
After
There,
she
there,
turned
there's
18, she got too old. So
Because there are other causes now. Yeah,
well,
there's
she's still doing the same thing, but it's kind of like she's just kind of like the head of Greenpeace, but it's her own deal, you know? Yeah.
these are much deeper and more complex issues. There's this whole phenomenon now where people are held responsible for any imperfections in something that may have originated in a completely different time and context. Like the oil and gas, for example, became dominant. Well, coal became dominant, and then oil and gas became dominant because they were the best at what they did, and they enabled humanity to do more than it ever had before. And so they took hold, and they became the world's dominant fuel supplies. And to attack them now because of a circumstance, because there's pollution or something like that, it's like, well, you're kind of late for that, because that all of this was set in motion 100 years ago. All the infrastructure was built that helps everybody exist, that makes the world function. It's all built on that system. You can't just replace it all. It's the analogy I used in my book is like it's equivalent of like moving the interstate system 100 yards to the west. It's sounds easy. What's involved in that? You would never do it. You couldn't get it done, but it sounds easy, right? Um, it's the same as replacing the oil and gas system. But if people said we can do it because we have to, and so that narrative just ran wild, and the oil and gas, there's a pile on, and against the industry, and they just ran free in the press because they captured it with their story narratives, like you said, and I think the industry did a very poor job, but they were caught flat-footed by all of this. The industry was right in the end that eventually the light bulbs will go on because they have to. People can believe fairy tales all they want, but if you bet your winter's food supply on a fairy tale, you're going to have a very rude awakening, and that's what's happening everywhere around the world. It's just that where these promises were made of a rapid energy transition, I think more and more people can just see that this just isn't happening, and luckily a lot of people haven't been hurt by it, but so.
What I don't understand about what's going on, at least in America, and I don't know if this is happening in Canada or not, but there's this big race for not only EV vehicles, but AI. So these data centers and then the EV vehicles. That's all well, and I'm not even talking about whether we should fund them or not, or whether we should go down that direction or not. Don't care. That's not what I'm talking about. But if you're going to fund them and we have zero infrastructure set up to use them, this is a formula I've seen over and over and over again by different, governments working with different corporations where they finance the project first and then they realize they don't have the system set up to do it, and then they turn around and bill the people for it. That's what's going to happen in America with the transmission lines, because you can't charge an EV vehicle in your house under the current transmission lines that we have set up. As soon as more than 5% of the people start using AI, you can't, and maybe it's 10%. My point is that AI uses so much energy that we're going to hit a critical mass of just regular users in the workplace, and it's picking up rapidly. Like,
Mhm.
I didn't even realize how many people are using it that are using it. And so, and little do they know they're putting themselves out of a job while they're using it. But those are two things, the EV vehicles and the data centers, that are just getting heavily funded by government subsidies, and they don't have the system set up to power them. So that tells me, based on the history, they're going to have to fund that too. In fact, that's going to be like 100% funded. And in America, with the wind stuff, that's how a lot of these, like Xcel Energy, right down the road here in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I love Xcel Energy, by the way. I don't have any problems with Xcel Energy. But what they did is they took advantage of this little loophole where, in order for them to make a profit, they needed to do repairs. And so
Yeah,
that's why these
capital.
utility companies are constantly doing repairs, because that's how they can generate profit. They can't on the electricity because it's a co-op, because
Right.
it's a monopoly, and the government says you can do 5%, maybe 3%, and that's it. And by the way, if the grid is starting to go here, it's 1%. There's just so many different variables that they put in, that they had to go and put up all these new poles and transmissions and all, because that was how they made money. So,
Yeah.
anyway,
Capital.
talk to me about the transmission lines, and just, are you guys funding projects before you have the infrastructure set up too?
Well, that's again, it's very complex, but the EV and it's interesting those two examples you gave, and I'll just go back to that for a minute. They're similar in that sense that they're causing a strain on the system that it can't handle. But they're quite different in another aspect, in that the EV thing was a regulatory push, and by and large, this isn't 100% true, but for purposes of making a point, it is. Citizens said, we don't want those things. I'm not buying that. And the
That's
government
true.
said, "Oh, yes, you are," or we'll coax you to. Here's $7,500. Here's an incentive. Here's whatever, and it's still
No,
not
and
working.
that's a fair statement to the point, to say where the consumer said, "We'll even take the hybrid," and the
Yeah, we'll
government
take
said,
hybrid.
"No,
Yeah,
no, you have to take the
yeah,
EV,
yeah. Take
not
the
the
EV. Yeah,
hybrid."
yeah.
So that's
So
a
so
fair
that's
point.
Yeah, so that's forcing something onto a system that nobody, like utilities aren't crying for electric vehicles, consumers aren't crying for electric vehicles, auto manufacturers aren't crying for electric vehicles. They have trouble selling them. They don't need the service headaches and setting up whatever. So nobody really wanted them except a certain segment of society and the government, which said, you're all getting them. Now, just park that for a second, and if you flip to the AI side, you have all of industry saying we want AI and we want it now. And I know you're saying there's some government sponsorship, but there's also the big tech companies have like opened their wallets and they're just like shoveling tens of billions or hundreds of billions. You look how much they're spending, like the big tech companies. I think it's 100. Yeah. The every time I look, the forecast goes up for like what's getting spent, even in the current year. I think the four biggest tech companies are spending something like $300 billion on AI, and they're starting to borrow money to do it. And every company that I've seen and every industry that I've seen is afraid of not being in the AI race. So you have this government, or not a gov, you have this industry race where they're saying Well, if you're an auto manufacturer, if you're a drug manufacturer, if you're an agricultural company, if you're a predictor, if you're all of these companies feel the need to get into AI or they're going to get left behind. So it's not just people using it to get queries, it's companies using it to get a competitive advantage. How do I figure out, how do I crack the code for the next cancer drug? How do I make my car the best um, data gathering device that it can be, like which is what a Tesla is. So the industry is piling in everywhere it can. So the difference with AI is that, or with EVs, is that governments tried to force them into a lot of places that didn't want them. Now you have industry saying, we'll set up AI data centers anywhere we can find that will, any nook and cranny that can hold them. It's a bit like the crypto miners when they came to town mining Bitcoin. They're like, wherever there's power and we can plug in, we'll do that. And I working now trying to place AI data centers, and there's companies coming from everywhere saying, where can we build a data center? Do you have water? Do you have power? Do you have gas? Do you have land? If you do, we want it. We want to button down that spot so that we can put up our data center. And then you have companies like Crusoe out of the US who are building portable data centers saying, hey, you don't need a huge building. We'll bring in a bunch of portable units and you can have your data center up and running in months. So everything is filling into now the end result for the grid is the same strain, but I think there's a big difference in that if you're especially the EV force to make it happen was also in conjunction with the force for wind and solar because that's all the same package, right? We're all going to go electric to save the planet, stop burning gas. We're all going to use wind and solar. So that created a whole realm of chaos for utilities where they said we can't handle the demand from EVs, we can't integrate wind and solar because they're intermittent and they're not baseload power, which we need at the peak times. So you've got three things there which just did could not coexist at the same time, even though governments were trying to force them to. AI thing is different. You have companies saying we will go wherever it takes. We'll do whatever we have to get a data center running. I mean, they're talking about putting them on the moon, which is like I don't know how crazy that could be. And but then the next line in the article saying, of course, this isn't feasible yet, but they're thinking of like
No, they
the
are.
build AI data centers is that strong, and the impetus is that strong. Is this going to last? I don't know. Maybe they'll really overbuild it. I don't know if that's the case or not. Will they build it until they push up electricity prices? I don't know. Maybe they will. Well, I think what'll happen is if most of it has to be natural gas fired until nuclear is ready, because they want 24/7, 365 power. So we won't get that from wind and solar or wind and solar in batteries. So the price of natural gas might get pushed up, or there'll be demand to build natural gas infrastructure, and there'll be demand to build nuclear facilities. So that's where the pressure is coming now. Companies like Oklo, however you say it, they're developed in a race to develop small modular reactors. There's like 10 or 20 companies in the US alone that are in a race to build small modular reactors. Plus China has them, plus Russia has them, plus Europe. Canada has at least two or three companies trying to develop small reactors. So the race, to me, the difference is even though AI is getting a little crazy, that's the healthy way that it should happen because you have all of this tremendous crush trying to solve a problem that's created by excess demand. Whereas the EV solar wind thing was this enormous rush trying to solve not people nobody really perceived it as a problem. They just like I'm not so sure that yeah you're telling me that the weather's going bad because I'm burning gas, but I want to go I'm not giving up flying. Who here wants to give up flying or cruises or vacations or whatever? And you won't find anybody from across the spectrum that's willing to do that. The most ardent activists I know still like to fly or go on holidays or use whatever. They still use oil and gas every day, right? So I think fundamentally everybody saw that saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is not a trend. This isn't a transition in a logical sense. If anything, this is going to be a totalitarian force to make it happen. You're all going to buy an electric vehicle. That's what it's going to be. Whereas the AI thing is like kind of sucking innovation into it and saying we will pay whatever it takes to get a small modular reactor or to get a natural gas plant built. So to me, it's what the first one couldn't exist without the government incentives or even the government drive to make it happen. The second one will happen regardless to the extent that the electrical grid can provide it. Um, and there's also a difference between like the AI things are that's flowing downhill like water to the places where it can set up the easiest and the quickest. And wind and solar weren't like that. They had to go where the wind was and they had to go where the sun was. And if that's not where the power demand is, then somebody has to build a 800-mile line to connect the wind farms to the demand center. Well, who's going to pay for that? That gets rolled into the rate base because it's placing capital. And an AI data center might be similar because of the demand for power that it's creating, but it's not going to have the same requirement to build out infrastructure that renewables do, especially intermittent power. Because
The
don't forget
way
that every AI customer is a paying customer, right? They're writing a check for power and they're saying, from what I hear, they're saying we don't even care what the power cost is anymore. We want our data center. So if somebody says we'll build you, some utility says we'll build you a power plant, it's going to cost you $150 a megawatt hour. They go, where do I sign?
so there's a few things that cause me pause and some red flags and the whole deal on these types of things. And let's start with the wind and solar because um, the part I'm looking at between wind and solar and AI is more about the structure that's set up and everything. Because when I take a look at wind and solar, they they haven't really hit the milestones that they set themselves. And I mean, we're talking billions and billions of dollars, and I'd even say trillions when you really look
Total, it is
at,
trillions. Yeah.
yeah, when you look at the departments that have been devoted to it, that's not even included in the subsidies. But so
Mhm.
when you take a look at that part of it, and then you take a step back and say, well, they didn't even incorporate the basics, which is on on wind, it doesn't work on the giant mass scale, but it does on a very small scale. In fact, in India, they have wind on the interstate. So when the cars drive by, they got these little corkscrew things that go, and the cars actually move these things going back and forth, and it powers a little bit there. It does. And on Chicago, they have corkscrew windmills on top of some skyscrapers and those types of things. But I bring up the Amish because the Amish can, with their neighbors, put up a windmill in the weekend, get power and water for a lifetime. That's one of the most efficient uses of wind that you can ever see. And the whole industry doesn't incorporate one aspect of that. Now let's take a look at solar. I'm driving to Fargo the other day. I had to do like a 3 hour drive. And so I went through all these different towns and I started noticing all these pod buildings started coming up. You know, these pods out in parking lots, they're like
Mhm.
Starbucks and Jimmy John's, and they're all franchises. They're all franchises and they all look the same. They're boxes. And some of them have the windows facing north and the mass facing south. Well, that you're talking about a 50 to 80% reduction. I mean, waste on your energy bill right there. And then I go and look online, and this city has a sustainability director and a sustainability department. Well,
That's
that's
crazy.
basic 101. That
Oh
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
can't figure out that the sun has gone the same direction and actually sets at the same freaking time up till the 21st, like Landman pointed out, to 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 go into how the sun sets at a different minute every day until June 21st and then until
Different
December,
angle.
yeah,
Yeah.
until it comes back. If we can't even figure out how to use the earth and the universal and the solar
Oh yeah.
system
Yeah.
properties in order to make solar energy work, that's what worries me about AI. That the way the tech industry is set up is they need to be bailed out every 3 to 5 years to make their profits work and their board of directors happy and their inflated salaries work. And the technocrats are really taking over government. I mean, most of governments are now creating content for YouTube and creating
Mhm.
content for Facebook and creating content for so seriously, when you take a
Oh,
look at
yeah,
what a
no,
lot of people do, at the end of the day, they're posting stuff on social media, which is creating content for a private company that they're now going to give nuclear power to. So
yeah. Well, that starts at the highest level, right? Like
yeah,
the U.S. government and even the Canadian government to much lesser extent, but the U.S. government and the Chinese government have both said we are going to win the AI war. Like we will win this race, which means they'll do whatever it takes, not just their use, but their support of it. And so in any way they can, the government to support. Like, when you say it's taken over by technocrats, that's absolutely what in effect what it's turning out to be. The government is saying you are going to be the winner, and we will do whatever it takes to make you the winner. Google and Meta and whoever else. They're just like clearing the path, just like they did 80 years ago to get oil reserves all around the world. They just cleared the path
and
for them.
no,
The
that's
the
and it was the
U.S.
railroad
economy.
before that, and it was the
Yep.
railroad before that. Absolutely, and that's what I'm saying. And so when I see the same formula being played out with AI, it's totally different. I mean, we're talking about we're gonna probably see an entirely new global economy when this is all said and done, because most of the manufacturing jobs are going to robotics. And so when we talk about robotics, that means we're trying to make the world more safe. That means the humans need something to do. Otherwise, we're going to go and just, club each other and kill each other because, well, that's why we work, right? That's why we
Lay
do
around
that.
the heat.
Otherwise, we're when we're lab rats, we rape and pillage and things like that. So they got to keep us busy. And so now that we got digital currency, man, we're gonna get paid to go to work and stare at a screen all day. I mean, that's what a lot of people's futures are. But about 10 years ago, when I started seeing the digital currency happen, and the way the thought workers were really taking over a lot of the manufacturing, I just said, what's going to happen with this transition? They're going to have to go in and destroy a house or destroy a town. Then they're going to have to go and bring in a recycling crew, and then they're going to have to go and bring in somebody to build it in their new way that it's energy efficient and the homes spy on you and do the whole thing. And then they got to bring in somebody to do the marketing and the rah. So I mean, it's really like going to be 5 stages. I see as kind of the new world, Terry, because the when you're talking about a technology world and the reality that we're probably the last generation to have cars, like my son, he's 19, he's not going to own a car in 10 years. He's going to have a
Not
ride share pass,
half
and
interested.
and
Yeah.
and some EV automated car is going to pick him and his buddies up, bring them to Buffalo Wild Wings so they can go watch the UFC every Saturday night. That's going to be his life, man, and he's going to be
Hmm.
just happy as can be. So
Hmm.
it's anyway, that's a little bit of a soapbox rant there. I kind of got into. So yeah, I'll
Well, that's
give
a
you
good
the
one.
soup. I'll give you the soapbox now.
That was a first class rant. I don't. Um, there's a spectrum of people that, or there's people are on a spectrum where some see AI is going to be the greatest thing that ever happened to mankind, like the Elon Musks of the world, and allow us to get to Mars and whatnot. And then there's people that say it's the end of society because there'll be no more jobs, there'll be no more life as we know it. And I have no idea who's right. I doubt that both are right. I think it'll be somewhere in the middle. I think there's been monster technological not renovations, revolutions that have happened through time. If you were around for the dot-com boom, and in
Yep.
the euphoria of 97 and 98, it was like everything is going to change. Nothing will be the same. There'll be shopping malls will be dead. You can shop online. Everything will, it's all going to people were crystallizing these big plates that were going to rearrange themselves, and here's how we're all going to live. And I don't think most of that has come to pass. Nobody does a post mortem on all of those predictions to say like, well, okay, 72% of them were nuts and 2% were accurate and whatever. Like, because nobody cares anymore. We're just looking forward. But I would think it's a pretty safe bet to say that people didn't exactly envision how it turned out. Now we have instant communication everywhere for everything, and we can book a reservation at a restaurant online, and you can see where traffic's busy. And so we have an information overload now. And but I don't think anybody then, maybe the odd smart person or some random chance would have said, this is going to be the problem, this information overload, where social media is like a cesspool and whatever else, and the content generators are going to be the new entrepreneurs and whatnot. So the AI thing, I don't think anybody knows how it's going to shake out. There will be very good things that happen. Some diseases will be solved. There will be, I think seniors could have a whole different lifestyle. Maybe you'll have some sort of a robot home building army that just builds homes faster than any human ever could, 24/7. Maybe that works. So maybe that solves some of humanity's problems, but creates others. So I don't know. You could, if depends what your inclination is, you can see the worst or you can see the best, I think. And I think it's still totally wide open yet. I don't think anybody really knows yet. I think robotics I think you could break it into different areas. There's going to be a lot more research on everything, material science and energy and manufacturing processes. They're going to get better through robotics. And maybe you have a robot that cleans your house. Is that a bad thing? I don't think so.
Well, it's like anything, when they first invented the wheel, man, it was great because it helped them bring water from the river to their cave much easier. But then that guy that annoyed them, well, they just rolled over him too. So, I mean, you can do evil things with all kinds of
Oh, yeah.
technology. Seriously,
Yeah.
it's the same thing with AI. Like I've seen everything from the Terminator Skynet to where the AI understands that humans are the biggest problem to humans, so they take them out to where a human gets really upset one night and lonely and decides to use AI to create a virus and
Hmm.
does that and it wipes out humanity and all these. So it's all here, and it's no different than with like money. Like money, I can go buy a slingshot and go do ill things with it, or I can go and get food with it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But I
yeah,
think
that's
it's
how I look at a lot of those different things. But AI is different though
well, it
because
is different, but at the same time, I think um,
here's why it's different, Derry, is because in sorry to interrupt, but it's so the way I try to explain this to people is that when the fireplace went away and the television came in, the entire layout of your house changed.
mhm.
And when people take the television out of their living room, they'll turn the furniture so it faces each other instead of all facing the television. That's what I think's happening. We are going to actually rewire our entire culture and society to adapt to AI in the same way we did with the fireplace and then the television, to where we literally pattern our homes around it. We
Yeah,
we
could be.
changed
Yeah.
our homes, and that's what, again, you brought up the robot. What's her name from the Jetsons? The what's Rosie the robot from the Jetsons. Hey man, we're all gonna have Rosies pretty soon. As soon as we get the steak in the pill form, let me know. That was always my thing. You just eat a pill and that was your meal for the day. Um,
That could come too.
we're not that far away from there either. So
Yeah.
I I I see where a lot of this is going to change, but I go back to the same thing, which is it concerns me that the tech industry from day one has been a pump and dump industry. They need to get new capital every 3 to 5 years by either raising new revenue, buying companies, or just doing a standard pump and dump, meaning inflate your market so you can get a bunch of suckers to invest and then you dump it and then go and start a new company and rebrand it type of a thing. that's what worries me more than anything, because the governments are buying into the tune to where you put it right. They're rolling out the red carpet and saying, everybody move aside. Let's usher these all the way to nuclear power. You've had
Mhm.
people trying to get nuclear power for 50 years, but ever since the movie The Day After came, there ain't anybody approving any nuclear power. Now Bill Gates wants it. Mark Zuckerberg wants it. Whoop, part the Red Sea and move
Yeah,
those
yeah,
guys right to the front of the line. And I'm okay with it. I use AI every day.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we all are, or we're going to be pretty soon, I think. So, um,
Yeah, and really when you look at the AI part from a medical point of view, that's where I think a lot of the people that are altruistic, that's where they're coming from. They see that, okay, instead of one doctor reading 5 case studies a day, now we can do 500.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's what they, and it's better than what the doctor is doing on his lunch break after he
Mhm.
got done doing open heart surgery trying to deal. I mean, that's what I see the AI going to be, the real beauty of it. And I'll be honest, I could see a day where you're going to have rations, just like there was gas rations. I'm sure there was probably coal rations and whale oil rations back in the day. I could see where, hey, you can get an
Yeah.
hour of online time and you can have 30 minutes of AI time a day. That's all you get. And I can see that happening, Terry. I can.
Because of the energy demand, you mean, or the
No, because I've seen how communist Russia works, where they got to stand in
oh
line
yeah.
for bread.
I was
And,
going to
and
say
I've
it's
seen how America's gone with the gas rationing to where this is the same thing. This is this, to me,
yeah.
it's no different.
It's yeah, it is that's the point I was going to make exactly that it's the rationing will come from government control,
Mm-hmm.
and the other way rationing can come is from economic control if something is just too expensive to
Yeah.
do. And I don't know which that kind of depends on which political structure wins the day, or will we oscillate back and forth, or yeah, I don't know. That's again, it's just infinitely complex. The China has one system which is accomplishing a lot of things that because they put in place the building blocks that are needed to accomplish their objective. I'm not saying it's a better system. I don't want to live in it because it's at the expense of a lot of human freedoms and whatever else liberties, and they're different systems, and there's one can work better. China may not have the problem with a lot of things that we do in the West, but we have those problems in the West because we have personal freedom. So I don't know. It's again, it's a spectrum of people that are going to say, "I'll take that one," and some will say, "I'll take that one," and 80% in the middle will just say, "Just leave me alone. I just want to watch TV and go on a holiday." There's,
I could tell you when China hosted the Olympics, was that 2008, 2012? I forget what year it was. I we watched the opening ceremony, and there was probably 10 of us in the room, and we were doing other things, and we just flicked it on type thing. I think we were watching Sunday Night Football all the time or something. And um, after I watched that opening ceremony, I turned and looked at everybody and said, China is now the global leader. There is
mm,
no country on earth that could be that synchronized, that disciplined with that many people. Holy Hannah, that shocked
yeah.
the heck out of me. And honestly, what they've done in the last 10 to 15 years, they've really cleaned up a lot of some of the pollution they've had. A lot.
Oh
Now,
yeah,
I'm not talking about their human rights by any means. No,
yeah,
because
yeah,
in order to do what they've done, horrible human rights atrocities, and they're doing the same stuff in San Francisco. They're trying to just mask the homeless and the people that are getting left aside so they could focus on what they want type of a thing. But I get whatever, greater good, blah blah blah.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
It's different.
again, I'm more of the libertarian that likes individual freedom, I guess. So
Yeah, me too. So I prefer living here. So.
well, all right, man. What are you working on? Let's close her up here. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, nothing in particular. I'm working on the things that we're talking about. I'm working in the data center space. I'm working in the energy space as always, and I'm just watching these new big shifts in the wind that are happening very quickly, and all wrapped around. I mean, the whole AI data center thing is just absolutely obliterating the discussion on energy. So it's just totally changed the direction of it. And 2 years ago, nobody saw this coming. AI, it just didn't exist on the radar of most people, not in the form it is now. So just trying to roll with the punches and see what happens there, and just hope for yeah, hope for humanity does okay. At the end of the day, I think I was going to say that a little earlier on. I think humans are humans, and we're still going to want a human connection. AI isn't going to replace everything. It's like you can have electronically pure music right now through a synthesizer, but nobody wants that. They want to hear a violin or an electric guitar or Bach or Beethoven. There's something about that the human element of imperfection, which I don't think AI is ever going to totally replicate. And we're still going to want to talk to people, and we're still going to want to go outside and touch a tree. And having a fake tree in your house is not the same thing as going out and seeing a real tree, and it never will be. And so I think there's an element of, I think people are going to say, they're going to have a rejection at some point of a totally artificial lifestyle where they're fed a pellet and they lay on a bed all day and in a AI virtual world with AI virtual people. Some people might like that, but I think by and large, I don't think that's a human condition, and I don't think people are going to stand for it. So
Couldn't
that's
agree
my guess.
more. That's why a lot of people do believe that the internet has some addictive qualities towards it. And when people go off it, a lot of them don't go back.
No,
And
they
if they
step
and,
back
and
and
if
they
they do
go,
go back, it's on a very limited basis because, it's just kind of like, hey, I'm going to go do my thing and then I'm going to take off. Like for me, Terry, honestly, I start my day, probably my first half hour to my hour, I'm outside. I'm outside my
yeah,
dog. I'm walking the river. It's a conscious effort every day for me to spend at least 2 to 3 hours outside, um,
yep,
just being in touch with nature because that's what I
it's important.
enjoy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good for the soul. And I think
It,
we'll take the good things out of like communications too. We have our cell phones everywhere, and you can say, there, this, what a horrible thing, because I spend my day on it, but we have texts from friends. I keep in touch with people from all over the place across the country and in the US that I would never otherwise. I would never
oh,
sit and write letters to them. I wouldn't pick up the phone and call them, but I can talk to them 10 times a day. So there's
this year
is
with the AI has allowed me to set up and do articles while I'm on walks with my dog. Like I come up with an idea, I can just tell the AI, "Hey, do this research," or "Hey, write me something, rough draft," and then kind of go from there. That's so nice to do because it'll for $20 a month, $50 a month, or whatever the tier is that you
yeah, yeah,
get, it can really organize and it can, again, as a former editor and publisher, I can navigate it unbelievably. Just like when
yeah.
the internet first came out, writers and researchers, man, we were all in because the only thing that was online was
Oh,
libraries.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was just, yeah, it was just a bunch of, it was like, I would spend weekends getting microfiche for crying out loud at the library because that's what we had back in the day to do a research paper and an
Yeah,
article and all kinds of different things. So,
yeah.
anyway, well, I better get running here. I'm taking a look
I
at the
betcha. The
time and,
light.
and apparently the sun went down fast here.
Oh yeah, it's getting black. All right.
Well, all right. BOE
Hey,
report
sir.
and Terry Etam, ladies and gentlemen, Canada's greatest export.